Sometimes, even the best photographers take pictures that need a little touch-up to look their best. And just like Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady, Photoshop lets us improve upon the original. When it's time to clean up imperfections, Photoshop offers some fantastic tools to get the job done. Let's open a brand new file. We'll go to our Chapter 6 folder and open the image titled Film Scan. I'm going to zoom into a 100% view. That's Control 1 on the PC, Command 1 on the Mac. And I want us to start here in the upper left part of the image. And you can see we've got our work cut out for us. A lot of things in here that need to be cleaned up. The first tool we're going to look at is the Clone Stamp tool. This allows you to paint one part of the image over another, removing flaws and defects. The Clone Stamp tool is located in our Tools panel. It's the icon that looks like a rubber stamp. The keyboard shortcut for this tool is the letter S. To use the Clone Stamp tool, you must first select a sampling point, the area from which you will be copying pixels. To do that, I'm going to hold down the Option key on the Mac, Alt key on the PC, and click. You can see the cursor change with the crosshair in the middle of that brush, and I have set a sampling point. The trick to using the Clone Stamp tool effectively is to continuously update your sampling point. I want you to go to the Options bar and make sure that you have this Aligned box checked. If you don't turn this on, you'll be sampling from the same spot every time you click, a dead giveaway that you've been retouching the image. I'm going to set a new sampling point, Option Alt, and now I'm simply going to click, painting over the areas I want to remove. And that's really all there is to it. It can be tedious work, but it makes a huge difference at the end of the day. Notice that inside my brush cursor, you can see a preview of the area that is going to be sampled. If you find this distracting, go up to Window, scroll down to Clone Source, and at the bottom of this Clone Source panel, you can turn off the overlay. Now as I move the mouse across the image, you can see directly underneath my brush through to the underlying image. It's your choice whether you want to turn the overlay on or off. I happen to prefer it off, so I'm going to leave mine unchecked. Let's get rid of this panel, and I'm going to continue cleaning up. Now we don't have time for me to clean up the entire image, but I'll just do enough so that you can see a difference. Few more spots up in here. It's actually kind of soothing, and it's very gratifying to get rid of parts of an image that you don't want anyone else to see. Remove a couple of more spots. Alright, we've done some work. Let's take a look at the before and after. We'll scroll up in our history panel. Here's the image that we started with, and with about 10 or 12 clicks of the Clone Stamp tool, this is where we end up. Not bad. When smooth and subtly changing textures like skin are involved, it's time to reach for another tool, the Healing Brush tool. So let's close this file. You don't need to save it. We'll go back to our Chapter 6 folder, and this time we'll open up the file titled Skin. The Healing Brush tool works on the same principle as the Clone Stamp tool, but it matches the texture of the sampling point to the destination point. Even better, we've got a spot healing brush that offers one-click retouching. I'm going to zoom in a bit on this image. That's Command plus on the Mac, Control plus on the PC. Let's get rid of this history panel. And the Spot Healing Brush is in the Tools panel located directly above the Clone Stamp tool. It's got a Band-Aid icon with some marching ants around it. The keyboard shortcut for this tool is the letter J. Now with the Spot Healing Brush, we don't have to set a source point manually. Photoshop automatically takes a look at the image and tries to select an appropriate sampling point. Now when you're retouching on skin, you can help out Photoshop a great deal by going up to the Options bar and making sure that you're set to Proximity Match. This instructs Photoshop to look for a sampling point that's relatively close to the defect you're trying to remove. I'm going to zoom in just once more. move over here, and there's a couple of stray hairs that we can remove. I'm going to increase my brush size. The keyboard shortcut is the right bracket key on the keyboard, and simply going to click. And it removes that. It'll remove that over there. Let's go get rid of this. Another spot down here, and just beneath the eye. It really couldn't get any simpler. You just click, and Photoshop automatically removes the defect, blending the sampled pixels to the destination. The spot healing brush tool is great for small discrete areas that you need to remove, but if we have a situation like this with milk around this young man's lips, we need to reach for the healing brush tool. That's located just beneath the spot healing brush tool in the tools panel. Again, the keyboard shortcut of J. Now with the healing brush tool, we have to set a source point like we did with the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to make my brush bigger. Right bracket key is the shortcut. I'm going to press the Option Alt key to select my source point. And as I start painting, initially it looks like this is just going to be a horrible retouch. But once I let go of the mouse, Photoshop goes to work and automatically matches the texture and lighting of these sampled pixels to our destination point. So we are simply going to set another source point, paint again here, come down along there. This is looking really good. Right now I shudder to think back to life before the healing brush. This kind of retouch used to take considerably longer. I'm going to make a smaller brush size now and go into this lip area. See if we can remove a bit of this. And this last little bit around the edge. Not bad. We'll come over here on this side, small brush size. I'll get this last little bit. There we go. Not bad at all. I'll go a little bit bigger on the brush size and just finish up this area around his lip. Once more. And that's a pretty good job for just a few seconds worth of work. The healing and spot healing brushes both work great for retouching on skin where you're going over relatively small areas. When we need to remove larger areas from an image, we're going to go to yet another retouching option. And this features something that's brand new to CS5, the Content Aware Healing option. Let's open up a brand new image. We'll close this one and we don't have to save it. And we'll go to our Chapter 6 folder and open up the file titled CA Fill. Now in this image, what we would like to do is remove these three lovely ducks from the foreground. We're going to use our lasso tool in conjunction with CS5's new Content Aware Fill. So let's choose the lasso tool. The keyboard shortcut is L, and we're going to choose the freeform lasso. And what I'm going to do is simply draw around each of these ducks. I'm taking care to include the reflection on the water. Now when I want to make an additional selection, to invoke the add mode, I am simply going to press the shift key. You'll see a plus icon around my lasso that allows me to add to this selection. And the third duck is selected right here. Now I'm going to go up to the edit menu, down to fill, and under fill I want to select Content Aware in this pull down menu and simply hit OK. Look at that. Photoshop has removed the ducks and filled them intelligently with other areas of the image, blending them seamlessly. Couldn't get any easier than that. There's another situation that you may come up with if you're using Flash to take your pictures, and that is the dreaded red eye. Let's close this file. We don't need to save it, and we'll go back to our Chapter 6 folder and select the file titled Red Eye. Red eye is not very attractive at all. It occurs when your subject is looking directly at your flash. Now Now the good news is that we can quickly get rid of this in Photoshop. I'll warn you now, this is going to be very complicated. Underneath the options where we have our healing brush, we have at the very bottom the red eye tool. Again, very complex. You may want to take notes for this. I'm going to center my cursor over the red part of the eye and click. I'll do the same for this eye. There we go. Could it be any easier? I don't think so. The last thing we want to talk about here in terms of fixing defects is image noise. We'll close this red eye file. Again, we don't need to save it. We'll go back to our Chapter 6 folder and open up the file titled Noise 1. Let's zoom into this image at 100%. That's Command 1 on the Mac, Control 1 on the PC. You can see in this image that we've got a lot of brightly colored pixels, reds, magentas, a little bit of blues in there. This is what's known as image noise, and the cause for it is shooting at a high ISO on your digital camera. This happens when you're in low light situations, and it's oftentimes unavoidable, but let's see how we can clean this up in Photoshop. We're going to go up to the Filter menu, scroll down to the Noise submenu, and go to Reduce Noise. Now this filter is nice. It pops up a nice big 100% preview of your image. And what we are going to do is simply move to the Reduce Color Noise setting and boost this up. The default is at about 45%. And what we're trying to do simply is take the saturated colors out of those noisy areas. If you want to see the preview, simply move your cursor into this preview box, click and hold. That's where we started from, and if we let it go, we see the after. So that's pretty good. Strength, you want to be very conservative here. This affects luminance noise, and this can very quickly lead to a soft, mushy file. So you don't want to stray too far above the default. It's the reduce color noise option that you really want to be concerned with. They have a basic and an advanced mode. In most cases, you're going to be fine with basic, but if you need to reduce image noise on a per channel basis, if you want to work differently on the red channel versus the green or the blue, for example, you can simply click on advanced. And now, instead of an overall strength setting, you can go and make changes per channel. For this image, the noise is fairly uniform over all three channels, so we're good in the overall setting and in the basic mode. Again, you want to use the reduce color noise option to get rid of as much color as you can. With sharpened details, you don't want to stray too far from the default in most cases. If you drag it all the way to the right, you're going to start to introduce artifacts to your image. And if you go all the way to the left, the image is going to be a bit softer than it really needs to be. If you're working with a JPEG that's been heavily compressed, you'll find this Remove JPEG Artifact button very handy. That can help remove some of the jaggedness or blockiness that you see in JPEGs that have been very heavily compressed. But that's it. The Reduce Noise filter, just a couple of settings on that, and you can have markedly improved results. We'll hit OK, and now you can see that result applied over your entire image area. The clone stamp and healing tools work fine when your source and destination elements are the same size. But what happens when you need to sample elements that grow or diminish along a perspective-based plane? The answer lies in the vanishing point filter. Let's start with a brand new file. We'll go to our Chapter 6 folder and open the image titled Vanish Point. I'd like to remove the street lamp from the image, but the building was photographed at an angle, and because of that, the bricks on the left side of the frame are smaller than those towards the right. As it stands, there is no place where I can sample bricks that will be the same size as those currently hidden by the street lamp. This is exactly why the Vanishing Point filter was created. We select it in the Filter menu and go down to Vanishing Point. To work with this filter, we first need to define for Photoshop the plane along which this image flows. The Create Plane tool in the upper left is selected automatically when we launch this filter. We're going to use this tool to select 4 corners along our image plane. I'm going to zoom in to 100% because the effectiveness of this tool is going to really depend on the accuracy with which we define these corner points. I'm using Control plus on the PC, Command plus on the Mac to zoom in at 100%. And I'm going to choose these window outline shapes as my image plane. I'm going to click here in the upper left corner, move over here to the upper right corner, and I'm going to scroll down, maintaining a straight line along that window frame, and stop right at the top edge of this stonework. Now you may have noticed that I just brought up the hand tool to move the image around in this preview window. I did that with our old shortcut of pressing and holding down the spacebar and dragging with the mouse. And as soon as I let go of the spacebar, I can continue marking my corner points. Again, we want to be as precise as possible with the definition of this plane. I'm zooming out here by pressing Control- on the PC, that's Command- on the Mac. Keep in mind that many of the keyboard shortcuts I've been showing you will still work even when you're in a filter, like Vanishing Point. The area inside the plane we've just created is going to define the locations from which we can sample pixels, so I need to enlarge this. If I hover the mouse over this center point, I can simply drag it to extend it up higher. The perspective will remain the same, it's just going to drag the entire grid. I'll bring this over here to the left, open this up a bit on the right, and I'll zoom out so that I can scroll all the way down to the bottom. Now I can zoom back in. With our plane drawn, we're ready to use the stamp tool that's located here in the left part of the filter. Now what we need to do is set a source point. And again, you really want to be zoomed in at 100% because the accuracy of this placement is going to go a long way towards the quality of our clone. I'm going to select a source point in this upper right corner of the window frame. I'm going to hold the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on the PC to select the source point. Now, as I drag the mouse, you can see the overlay of these sampled pixels. Unlike in the previous lesson, where this overlay was optional, here it's crucial that we see what we're sampling from, because now what we want to do is find the corresponding location in this right window frame and line it up until we get an exact match. We want to have the bricks be a seamless, continuous match in both the horizontal and vertical direction. So I'm going to line this corner up. That looks pretty good. I'm simply going to click and start painting. And look at that. I'm completely removing the street lamp, and I've got a nice seamless blend of the bricks replacing it. I'm going to scroll up a little bit and get the remaining parts of this upper lamp out of the way. Here I'm going to pause for a second and give you time to pick your jaw up off of the floor. This is really an amazing tool. This is as close to magic as you're going to get. Simply paint out here. I'll come down and I'm going to stop before I hit this stonework. This part of the image has a lot of detail, so I'm going to choose another source point so that I can make a very precise alignment. I'll choose something in this corner area over here. I'm going to Option click on the Mac, Alt click on the PC. Now what I want to do is look for a region in this destination area that matches up exactly. Let's see if I can get this lined up right over here. That looks like a pretty good match. Perhaps we'll start from this one. There we go. That's absolutely 100% perfectly aligned. So I'm simply going to click and start painting. And again, we've got a nice seamless transition from our sampled pixels to our destination pixels. Once again, as we hit another detailed area of the image, I'm going to choose another sampling point. Here I'm going to start just at the left corner. I'm going to Option click on the Mac, Alt click on the PC. Now we want to match this corner up with the corresponding left corner. And we get something that's just about there. That looks really good. I'm going to click, move over our street lamp, and simply start painting. There we go. That looks good. I'm simply coming straight down here, painting out, and you can see I'm even duplicating the debris that is coming from our source area of the image. Again, before we hit this final section of the street lamp, I'm going to click another source point. So I will Option click on the Mac, Alt click on the PC. And now we want to line this little bottom edge of stonework up so that it blends in seamlessly. That looks good. We'll click and simply paint out. I'll zoom back out. And there you have it. We've removed the street lamp and we've sampled bricks that were able to maintain the perspective of the original image. If you're paying close attention to your screen, you may notice that there are some areas of bricks that are not lined up as perfectly as they could be. Normally I'd go back in and touch those up a bit, but since you have the image on your computer, I'm going to ask you to take a very close look at your results, and if necessary, go back into Vanishing Point and make some adjustments until each and every brick is perfectly perfect. We'll hit OK, and our work in the Vanishing Point filter is accomplished. The most common flaw when photographing architecture is the phenomenon known as converging lines. Vertical elements appear to fall away from us because the camera lens was tilted up when the photograph was taken. Let's see what that looks like. In our Chapter 6 folder, we're going to open the file titled Perspective. You can see here that this fountain appears to be leaning backward, particularly the lamppost. The lens was tilted up to fit everything into the scene, but we now have the issue of converging lines. As you can probably guess by this point in our training, Photoshop can help you correct this distortion. We're going to go to the Filter menu and select Lens Correction. Now in the Auto Correction tab, I want you to change two settings. We're going to turn off the auto scale image setting. We want to keep the same field of view, but under Edge, I would like for you to set it to Edge Extension. This is going to allow Photoshop to try to fill in any blank edges that occur when we correct this distortion. Now we're going to select the Custom tab, and down towards the bottom under the Transform options, we are going to take the vertical perspective slider and drag it to the left. You can see as I drag, the image is straightening up. We'll go right about there. Looks pretty good. If you look carefully at the image, you'll also notice there's a little bit of a shift from left to right. So we're going to the horizontal perspective slider, and we'll drag that just a couple of points to the right. That looks pretty good. I'm going to toggle our preview on and off simply by pressing the letter P on the keyboard. There's our original image. I'll press P again. Here's our corrected result. We can simply go up and hit the OK button to commit to this filter. And now we have our image in its fully corrected state. If you pay close attention on your screen, you may notice at the bottom we have some artifacts that were created when we let Photoshop do an edge extension. There are many ways to fix this. I've already shown you some of the tools you could use, like Clone Stamp, Healing Brush, and even Vanishing Point. There are also more advanced techniques that are beyond the scope of this course, so feel free to experiment on your own. What I'm going to do is simply crop the image. We'll select the Crop tool in the Tool panel. The shortcut is the letter C, and simply start from the top, and we'll go right about to here. Looks pretty good. And now we have a fully corrected image. If you need to change the ratio or proportions of your image dimensions and don't want to crop out any of the image content, the Content Aware Scaling tool is just for you. We're going to open a brand new image in, surprise, surprise, our Chapter 6 folder. This time we're going to open the image titled Scale. Now let's suppose I want to change the ratio of this image by making it shorter from top to bottom. Let's go back in time to life before the Content Aware Scaling tool. We would go to the Select menu, select All, then move to the Edit menu, and select Free Transform. This places control points around our image, and we would simply go up to the center top control point and drag it down. Now this does indeed change the ratio, but look what happens to the image. The people are squashed like bananas. Not a believable result at all. I'm going to move up to the options bar and click the cancel button. Now, with our image still selected, I'm going back to the edit menu, but this time I'm choosing content aware scale. We have the same control points. I'm going to click on this top center point, drag down to change the ratio, and now look at what a difference that tool makes. The image has scaled very nicely, but the people still look like, well, people. I'm going to go back up to the options bar and click on this check mark to commit to that change. Now, the only thing left to do is simply crop out the empty white space from this image, and we have a completely new but believable image ratio.